Now, I'll admit my economic knowledge, my fiscal policy knowledge isn't great. I'm a law student, that's my specialty. Is I know the basics, but I can't give you a detailed overview. I'm sure there are many, many people who can. Having said that, I think it's important to understand the gist of what's going on and what kind of crisis the EU is in, why this has happened, and where it's going to take them in the future. So the EU sovereign debt crisis explained by myself. Bear in mind, I'm not an expert, but this is my understanding of it. So the ECB, the European Central Bank, which I spoke about before, regulates states' monetary policy, right? So it will control their exchange rates, it will manage inflation, make sure products don't go sky high in price. But it won't manage states' fiscal policy. That is, it can't tell governments how to spend money, and it can't tell governments to not spend or to not go into debt. So what this does is it creates a divide where the ECB regulates one thing and it doesn't regulate the other. Now, before adopting the euro as their currency, which many countries in the European Union have, countries like Italy, Portugal, and Greece had a lot of debt, right? Large amounts of debt that they owed to many, many people. Private investors, institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, they owed a lot of money to people. And so because of that, because they haven't paid back their debts, they couldn't take out more big loans, because if they were to, the interest rates would be sky high and they would never get approved for more loans. However, after adopting the euro, lenders believed they were backed by stronger economies in the EU. And so if Portugal, Greece, and Italy were not able to pay back these bigger loans that they had applied for, they'd know that they had the EU as an institution that would back them up, that would pay it for them essentially. More stronger economies like France and Germany would essentially pay back. And that's exactly what happened. And then in 2008, lenders began calling in those loans. In 2008, as you know, was the housing crisis that began in America. And that created a chain reaction of economic crisis all over the world, the global financial crisis. So all these private investors, institutions, and the World Bank began calling in their loans and saying, actually, we need that money back now, right? You can't just keep delaying it, paying minimum payments. You can't keep. The problem was these countries didn't have the money. They had no idea how to pay this back. They physically did not have the money. So the poorer countries, as was expected, turned to the EU to pay off their debt. Now, this is the problem. Now, the EU isn't some mega state that's separate from all the other states, which has a massive bank account and can pay out whenever things go wrong. The EU is made up of European countries, and the biggest of those countries is Germany. Germany is the biggest financial contributor to the European Union. So when you ask the EU to back up your loan, essentially what you're asking is for Germany to back up your loan, plus lots of small countries' contributions. And so Germany was in this very, very awkward position where it's regarded as the biggest country, the hegemon, the economic powerhouse of the European Union, yet it had this burden on its hand. It almost had a moral and social obligation to pay back the loans for its European brothers, right, in its organization. Yet at the same time, to talk to an average German and tell him that you're going to pay back billions of Greece's debt because of Greece's own fault, and they are not going to be very happy about that. And so the trade-off here was that Germany said reluctantly, okay, we'll pay back your debts, Greece, Italy, Spain, etc. However, there's one condition. And these countries had to implement austerity measures. Austerity measures meaning cutting public services, cutting wages, cutting jobs. And when you implement these austerity measures in these countries, inevitably that leads to cancelled investment projects like new buildings and skyscrapers and things like that, cutting salaries from people, especially in the public sector, and job losses, right? Just cutting jobs completely. And so now in 2021, we have this problem where without a central European Union authority to regulate monetary and fiscal policy, that is, regulate how Greece and Portugal and Spain are able to borrow money, this crisis is just going to continue. But having this central authority, this EU central authority, is, as you can imagine, hugely controversial. Because we said previously, already the EU takes up a lot of the country's sovereignty in terms of lawmaking powers. To do that for economics as well, for monetary and fiscal policy, that is going to be a very tough sell for normal, average Europeans.